Hey guys, what's up? Kyle from Cause 3D today, and we have a special build. I filmed this build start to finish on the Galactic Armory ShoreTrooper, and I'm here to tell you this thing was a pleasure to put together and finish. So without any further ado, let's get right to the video of building it. Pleasure of a build to make. So we'll just talk through what we did on the process. So I started with an 80 grit sandpaper on my random orbit sander, and I went through and did every single piece, hitting it quickly, not taking a lot of time bearing down on it, not trying to get all the print lines out, just trying to get it nice and started. So then I followed it up here with a 240 grit on my random orbit sander, going through every single piece again. Once I got to that point, I went back and hand sanded with 80 grit, and then again just jumped it over to the 240 grit after that, so that hit those hard to reach spaces. The next step in my process is the UV resin that I paint on each and every single piece. I don't go super thick. Sometimes you can get by with one coat, sometimes you can get by with two coats. I will note that after I did let it sit under the curing light for quite a little bit of time. I brought them out, sprayed them down with isopropyl alcohol. I put them back in the curing station, sprayed them again with alcohol until they were no longer tacky. And then I follow that up with the 240 grit sandpaper again. And it's a long, tedious process, but up to this point, I probably only had about not even an hour's worth of work time in this. So it wasn't too grueling. And in this part, I'm just finishing up the dome part with the 240. Now, I did move to some areas that were pretty rough even after the sanding. You'll see it when we start assembling, but I did use some Bondo glazing scratch and spot putty. Now, when I move over to the paint booth, I have not assembled anything yet. I'm dry fitting everything, and the reason I do this is when I go to hit it with some primer, I can see where my parts are going to be glued together, so that when I go to glue it, I'm gluing plastic to plastic. So just using some U-POL primer here. It's probably my favorite primer that I've run across so far because of how thick it is. Not too worried about how thick it sprayed on. It may have some runs. Now we're getting ready for the assembly part, and just using some super glue. Each piece is dry fitted to make absolutely sure that there's going to be no problems as far as the parts coming together and connecting. I did dry assemble this probably 3 or 4 times at this point, so I knew pretty much how it needed to go together. And even with the footage sped up, I did take my time making certain that I got everything correct. And as we just finish up this last few pieces, now you'll notice I put the faceplate in, and then I pushed it inside the helmet and brought it back to the front. I did find that that was actually easier than trying to place it from the outside in. It was easier to put it in from the inside out, if that makes sense. Now, this is one of my favorite tools that I've been using recently, and this is just a plastic welder, and it's going to put the heats up, and you'll see me spraying some cold air from the air compressor in there to hold those wire parts that come out of the end of the gun. I mean, this is just full rigidity here. I would imagine you could probably drop this helmet at this point. It's not going to break on any of the weld lines that we put into it. So my camera died. I did do one coat of the tan, and then I'm now just let it sit. Now I'm doing the second coat of tan, so you really didn't miss much there. Now we're just gluing on the Greeblies. Again, I've already sanded these down. They are painted black, and I had everything ready to go at this point. I already dry fitted everything. Just want to make absolutely sure everything fit before I applied any glue to it. You'll see I ripped the tape off there in the middle because I wanted a good bond between that front vent piece and the helmet, so I left the tape on there to mask it from paint. Now I'm just doing the visor ridge there with some black, of course grabbing the hair dryer to speed up that drying process. And my favorite part of any paint job is removing the masking, and lo and behold, I actually did not have any bleed over at all, which is always a nice surprise. So now to the hand painting part. You could mask this area off where the black is. There's quite a bit of black paint, as you can see on those top ridges as well. And I just found it was quite easier to paint it with a brush. And now I'm just putting down some brown sienna, burnt sienna, I believe is what I used first, just to give it a nice dirt base coat, give it some depth to it. Getting in those ridges as best we can, putting some, scratches type with the brown across the top, and anywhere where a helmet like this would collect dirt. Now I don't overdo my weathering. I know the screen used ones are incredibly dirty, especially with the black. It almost looks like there's a black base to them, and I elected with the black to be a little more subtle. Really happy with the way the black turned out. And of course I'm using a sponge here at this point that I just cut a piece of sponge off and got the sponge wet and just dabbing in some black, going back with a wet paper towel and removing it. I'm trying not to wipe anything. You can't tell from the video. Wiping leaves streaks. Dabbing is a much slower way to go, but also the results are so much better if you just dab it on and dab it off. I'm using a Q-tip here in some of the smaller areas that I couldn't get the sponge. And let's see, now we're doing a clear coat with my favorite Montana sprays, and that clear coat was just a simple satin coat. Cutting out the visor here. The visor template that I had for this fit pretty well. I did make some modifications to it, hot gluing it in at this point. I am a big fan of the Galactic Armory helmet visor ridges. Well, there you have it. I did not film myself painting the red logo on it, and I ran out of time. And there you have it, guys. It was an incredibly fun build. You can get the STL files from the Galactic Armory if you want, or you can order the helmet kit from us on our Etsy store under Cause3D. I will tell you that you might have to send us a message on Etsy if you want one of these. We don't typically stock this particular helmet. It's more of a special request kit. We can get it to you, in a couple days, and appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today, and make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment, please. We'd love to hear from you, and we will see you in the next video.